Starcasting to you from the City of Angels. Hi, everyone. My name is Kiris. Thank you so much for being here and listening to the Voice of Astrology podcast. Astrology is the eternal, indestructible superpower of the cosmos. And if you're looking for the force and freedom to make your own choices in life, to live the life that you want to live, then you've come to the right place, baby. All you got to do is look up. Journey with Astrology as we connect to the stars, the planets, and energies for our new week ahead. This is our astrology for the week beginning Sunday, July 10th through Saturday, July 16th, 2022. Now, as we start off the week on Sunday, July 10th, we have the moon in Jupiter-ruled Sagittarius. Now, when the moon is in Sagittarius, this is the great desire to go beyond the limitations, to become more, seek more. Sagittarius is I seek, to go after new adventures, new horizons, to go beyond the horizons. Remember, Sagittarius is represented by half horse, half man, which is one of the feral, wild and free signs of the zodiac. So Sagittarius has to roam. Sagittarius has to reach for the stars, as we should. So there's a great desire as we're starting off the week with the moon in Sagittarius, which is the truth seeker, dedicated to truth seekers of all time. So going beyond the limits of what you ever thought you could do. This is the great desire. The moon is what we want as we're starting off the week. Also, we are approaching the full moon in Capricorn. So we're in waxing gibbous moon phase. The power, the intensity, the energy is increasing almost at that full culmination point. Now, the moon in Sagittarius is making aspects all over the place. We've got the moon in Sagittarius making an inconjunct to Mars in Taurus, its detriment at this time. The moon in Sagittarius is making a fire trine flow to Jupiter in Aries. Jupiter, Sagittarius's ruler. So this fire trine flow is the enthusiasm, the happiness, let's say the zest, just the life force to go for it. Also, we have the moon in Sagittarius making an inconjunct to Mercury in Cancer. Now, these aspects that we're looking at, which are all over the place, as we are starting off the week, and they are all connected to the moon, which is how much we are in touch with our feelings, what we truly want. On July 11th, Monday, moon in Sagittarius makes a trine flow to Chiron in Aries. Then the moon in Sag makes an inconjunct to Uranus in Taurus, an inconjunct to the sun in Cancer, an opposition to Venus in Gemini, a sextile to Saturn in Aquarius, and a square to Neptune in Pisces. So we're looking at all the different aspects, all of the different elements. Some are ease, some are frustrating, some are confusing. In other words, your emotions, what it is that you want, the moon and the power is strong. It's just all over the place. It can be conflicting. It can be confusing. It can be the feeling of not knowing what you want, why you want it, how are you going to get there? The moon is so active with all of the different relationships, feelings, and energies. So how you connect to this cosmic superpower is to realize that as we approach the full moon in Capricorn, the full moon in Capricorn is the reflection, the light, the mirror. When the moon accepts the full illumination and light of the sun, what is being mirrored back to us is the true internal self-image of how we really see ourselves. Now, the Capricorn Cancer axis. Cancer is home and family, the nurturing mother. It's the private life, what goes on, what went on while you were being raised as a child. Capricorn is the world. Capricorn is the marketplace. The world is a marketplace forever and forever. As long as there are people, there will be this exchange, this trade of value for value. That's the sign of Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. This is the full moon in Capricorn at 21 degrees. Now, 21 degree Capricorn is the third division, the third decadent. So this is bringing in a Virgo influence to this full moon. Now, before we get to that culmination point, the emotions can be all over the place. This can be one of the most successful full moons of your life. If you are willing to reflect like the full moon in Capricorn, with that Virgo influence, the Virgo decadent. Now, what does Virgo do? Virgo is the process of harvesting. If you look at the symbol of Virgo, that's the maiden at harvest time, harvesting, but also separating the healthy from the unhealthy, the wheat from the chaff. So one of the processes of this full moon in Capricorn is the reflection and is the process of what is healthy for you, keep it. What is toxic, poison, release it. This is the Virgo influence of this full moon in Capricorn. Now, in this process of what to keep and what to release, Virgo rules over the separation digestive tract. What you want to full moon shine the light on is what to keep is what is truly you, the truth of who you are. What is separation, releasing, is what is not really you, the conditioning, the brainwashing, the socialization, the education of what wasn't really you to begin with. This is where you want to go into the full moon in Capricorn value in the sense of the way the world really works. Capricorn and Saturn is about the way the world works, which I'm going to get to. Cancer is the way home and family and private life works. This interplay with this full moon in Capricorn is the interplay between the private, vulnerable home family life. That's Cancer. Ruled by the moon, the nurturing mother, the way you were raised, the way you were cared for. If you felt you were loved, if you felt like you were cared for, how were you nurtured and cared for? This is the Cancer factor in astrology. What goes on in a person's private family life? Can we ever really know? No. This is why it is of utmost importance not to judge what you think you're seeing, because we don't know. what's going on in someone's private life and in their private home, how they were raised, how they were loved or not loved. Now, Capricorn, the opposite, the full moon, where the spotlight is about everything having to do with who and what you are, what conditioned you, is what you are bringing out on the world stage into the marketplace and how the world works. Capricorn, Saturn. This is how the world works. The world is saying to all of us, what do you have of value that a person would take cold, hard cash, crypto, Bitcoin, fiat money? What would someone be willing to exchange with you, value for value? Do you have what it takes? Do you have something of value that people are willing to make a trade? That is how the world works. Capricorn, Saturn, public, not Cancer private, Capricorn public. Because if you do not have anything of value to exchange, you may want to reflect on that with this full moon in Capricorn. Because the moon in Capricorn is what's called in her detriment, her exile. The moon in Capricorn is the furthest away, the opposite of the moon's natural home domicile placement of Cancer. So when the moon is at home in Cancer, this is all the feels in terms of being in touch with how you feel, being connected to what you want. Moon in Cancer says, of course I make myself happy first. That's a given. That's just a natural thing to do. And that all begins with how you are loved and cared for as a baby. Babies watch and imitate. If a baby has a caretaker that wants to make them happy, that shows them that they are loved, that shows the baby that they are cared for, then what we do as babies and children is we imitate that behavior. Babies watch and then they imitate. So if you have someone, and not just behavior, I'm talking about emotionally. The moon in Cancer is emotional, not just copying and imitating the behavior, the accent, the language, the outside stuff. There's an imprint that happens with the moon. The moon rules over memory, sentimentality, the subconscious drives and compulsions. So when a child, a baby, has a caretaker, the moon, that cares for them emotionally, meaning kind to them, loving to them, wanting to make them happy, happy to make them happy, then the baby, meaning you, will feel and imitate that emotion towards yourself. And this is where that feeling, that knowing, when it's in your bones, I am valuable, I have worth. Now, when you're in touch with that, and it's so interesting to me that this week, the moon is all over the place, as I just covered. The aspects are off the charts. And also on the day of the full moon. So the moon and being in touch with how you feel and what you want, and most importantly, how you value yourself. Because if you don't love and value yourself, you won't accept great things coming into your life. At the very least, you won't hold on to it for very long if you don't feel worthy. An empty moon or a moon in exile is that feeling of it's never enough. When you finally get enough, prove enough, get 10 Academy Awards, $1 gazillion, and even then it's still not enough. Because the moon is an insatiable appetite. The moon is about acquisition. Never, never, never enough. You don't have to go through life being what I call a not enougher, meaning no matter how many blessings, no matter how much you have, it's never enough. That's a hungry, starving moon. And if you are a not enougher, or if you are with someone that is not enougher, I have to urge caution, because what happens is that eventually you become not enough to them, or they become not enough to you. That's a starving moon. That's the moon in Capricorn, exile, the orphan child, the furthest away from its home placement, lost. So with this moon, this full moon in Capricorn, which is reflecting back to us, the illumination is, how do you value yourself first? And then out in the world, what do you have of value? That again, someone would exchange something that they have of value. For instance, hard-earned money, because that trade in the marketplace of value for value is forever and forever. So think about this, because the way the world works is that if you do not have something of exchange that is of value, the world in Capricorn is ice cold. Capricorn and Aquarius, both ruled by Saturn, are the dead of winter. It's the coldest, darkest, iciest time of year. And we all witness firsthand people that are out on the street that are not valued by the world. It can go that far and then some. So this full moon with the Virgo decadent influence is saying there is a process here to be done. That Virgo process of harvesting and separating in connection to Saturn, ice cold. Before that ice cold winter hits, the separation process of who are you truly and what needs to be released, let go of, because it's poison, it's toxic. This is the Virgo separation, wheat from the chaff. And so all of this confusion and the moon making all these different kinds of aspects before we get to that full moon culmination. And when we are in waxing gibbous, that means there's still more room for growth, always. But especially with this full moon, because it's about how you function and are valued in the world, in the marketplace. The world is a marketplace forever and forever. And so the astrology and the cosmic superpower that is always loving and guiding you is shining the spotlight on a lot of different things to consider. One, if you are loved and cared for, and how you love and care for yourself, Sun in Cancer, home and family, nurturing emotionally, psychologically, physically, yourself. Sun in Cancer, what's really going on in private, not all the contrived masks and outer things that people try to show, what's really going on privately, Sun in Cancer, and how that reflects and projects out into the world. Full moon in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, which is cold and couldn't care less if you don't have something of value to offer. That is the way it goes. Bottom line, if anything, Capricorn and Saturn is what we could say the realist. What's the bottom line on the stage of the world? I didn't say at home and family. That's Cancer. I said out in the world. Full moon, 21 degrees Capricorn. You need to know this. Also, Saturn is the father. Cancer is the mother. When we look at Cancer, the emotions, the nurturing mother, the sensitivity, the nurturer, Cancer. Father represents status, respect, value in the world. One of the main questions that I would highly encourage you to ask yourself with this full moon in Capricorn is, how are you respected? What are your boundaries, your status? What is your value? These are things that, classically speaking, come from the father, not the mother. Now, of course, it has changed in modern times, but I'm speaking about the masculine and feminine energies and modalities. We need both. The father Saturn boundary modality is just as important as the feminine. It's not okay for you to be walking down the street and for someone to not respect your boundaries, Saturn, the boundary, and just clunk you over the head, for instance, and steal your purse or something like that. There's a boundary that needs to be set into place, of course. I'm just using that as a small example of what Saturn, Capricorn, the father, the male, the respect, the status, the boundary. Take a look at how you feel you have been respected, and if there have been appropriate boundaries that are upheld, that you uphold. I hear this all the time as a professional astrologer, and then some. The way people will be in important business meetings and so forth, and things happen that are clearly disrespectful. That's Capricorn, Saturn and Capricorn stuff. That's not Sun in Cancer, moon, home and family, private stuff. It's out in the world. So this is a lot of what has to do with this full moon at 21 degrees Capricorn. Now, also what's going on during this week, besides the full moon and all of these aspects, when we go into July 13th, the day of the full moon, and then the 14th, we have the moon in Capricorn. Also, I just want to point out this aspect, making a conjunction to Pluto in Capricorn. And Pluto is the underworld, the shadow, the phoenix rising from the ashes, the death, the rebirth. And so if you're willing to really go into the place of fear, shadow is another word for what we fear. If you're willing to emotionally go to the place of fear, and ultimately it's the fear of you're not enough, I can assure you that you are enough and then some. But if you're willing to go to the fears that you weren't enough, aren't enough, and excavate that moon conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. Then you emerge with new life, new revitalization, and facing those fears, which isn't an easy thing to do. It's scary and it's painful, but it's worth it because you come out on the other side, which is the light and new beginnings. Now, when we go into July 14th, the moon then changes and goes into fixed air freedom Aquarius. And as we start to close out the week with the moon in Aquarius and all of the hard work we've done with this full moon in Capricorn, and Capricorn Saturn, that is the taskmaster. It's about doing the work, but the rewards that come from doing the work, reaping what we sow, doing the work. Saturn is often called not only the father, but the great taskmaster, where the benefits and the results that come through the hard work of experience, it's worth it. Now, as we go into the end of the week, and the moon is in Aquarius, which is still ruled by Saturn, the difference here is that fixed air Aquarius can be a new perception, a new mindset. Aquarius is the freedom, the future. And Aquarius is also the rebel. The Aquarius is about embracing your unique, one-of-a-kind individuality and not being concerned if other people, including the family, approve of that or not. It's about you've done the hard work, you've come through onto the other side. And the moon in Aquarius is basically saying, I'm going to be me and offer what you have of value that will be valued in the Saturnian world of exchange. Now, on Friday, July 15th, we have the moon in Aquarius making an air trine flow to Venus in Gemini. So the moon and Venus are in love with each other on this day, and they are exchanging brilliance, thoughts. It's sparkly, it's air, it's freedom, it's movement. It's just that feeling of taking a deep breath and feeling like it's all fresh and energized. When we go into Saturday, July 16th, the moon moves into mutable water Pisces, ruled by Jupiter. The sun in Cancer makes a conjunction to Mercury in Cancer. So this is when the emotional mind, Mercury in Cancer, and how you want to feed your mind. Cancer is food, Mercury is the mind. So because we're looking at the sign of Cancer, this is when you come to the realization that feeding your mind with loving thoughts, nurturing thoughts, being kind to yourself, caring for yourself. This is what you're going to be thinking about and feeding your brain. Sun in Cancer conjunct Mercury in Cancer, tying into the moon in Pisces. The moon rules over the sign of Cancer. So what all of this water means is the realization of the effect that how you think about yourself, what you feed your mind, and what an influence and effect that has on how you feel and value yourself. Before, you didn't have a choice. What was going on privately, you didn't have a choice in that situation. But now, as an adult, in Capricorn and Saturn, that also in astrology is the adult, where it's now your rules of the road and nobody else has control of that. No one can force you to think thoughts you don't want to think. The other beauty of this full moon in Capricorn is when you finally realize, and you will if you haven't, that the only person in control of your mind, the thoughts you think, how you feed your head, so to speak. Sun in Cancer conjunct Mercury in Cancer. The sun being your dignity, self-esteem, life force. Mercury being what's going on up in your consciousness that ultimately only you know. But how you're feeding your mind, the full moon in Capricorn, as the adult, the father, the parent. This is also showing you that ultimately you're in control. No one can force you to think things you don't want to think. They can certainly try to influence, and that's around you everywhere all the time. It's like an avalanche of things trying to control your mind, as I'm sure you know, because if they can control your mind, then they can manipulate and control how you feel. That's the danger zone. If you allow things to control your mind that make you sad, that make you unhappy, that make you not like yourself, that make you feel down on yourself, that break your spirit, that's the dangerous place right there. And that's why we're having this full moon in Capricorn, because again, Capricorn and Saturn, that is the great teacher, not necessarily easy lessons, but that is the great teacher or the great taskmaster, which is you getting control of your own mind and the thoughts you think, which will lead to how you feel and how strong your spirit is. That's the gift of this full moon. One of my heroes is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. This man survived the concentration camps. And one of the things he wrote about is that the one thing that the monsters couldn't control was what he chose to think about. They couldn't control his mind. And they also couldn't control what had meaning and purpose for him. The people that did survive, he noted that they had a sense of meaning and purpose as far as life and living. Why don't you start, as a suggestion, by making the meaning and purpose of your life you being the meaning and purpose of life, that your value and sense of self is the top number one meaning and purpose of your life. If you just start there, then everything else will align. Finding what it is that you love, finding what it is that you value, what you have of value, and then carrying that out into the marketplace of the world, your value in the world. Just start there, and that will get you going if you haven't already. The meaning and purpose of your life is you to begin with as a start. Ultimately, we want to serve and give back, but if you're not there yet, don't worry about it. What I do is me, for that I came. Say that to yourself. Just start there if you haven't already. and make the most of this full moon in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. The world is a marketplace, and it's all about the way the world works and your place in it. Thank you so much for being here and listening to the Voice of Astrology podcast. I will see you all in the stars. Have a fabulous week, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you.